Welcome to Rauta's going through my record collection video part J. This is probably the shortest one, at least so far, because let's be honest about it, there are not too many good bands with letter J. Obviously, every letter, well, not every, but most of them do have quite a bit of interesting bands, but there are certain letters that kind of make the exception. Now, one could actually ask, why are you making a single episode about that? Because I want to keep them separated. Some are shorter, some are longer. That's how it is. Just like in life. Not everybody gets to be equal. But it's worth making this episode on its own because while I don't have more than this when it comes to CDs with bands starting with letter J, there are some special ones which I guess deserve more wording. Now let's mute the phone for a bit. Now, when I was thinking about it, it was kind of hilarious because there's like one band that is presented here just by one album, and now people are gonna be, why the hell so? And then there is one band which is dominating like most of the pile, and well, something else too. Let's start with that something else because I think it makes most sense for me to just going in alphabetical order. Now, this is a peculiar case here in my collection, Jean-Michel Jarre, Waiting for Cousteau. Why so? Now, this album features 4 tracks, and as you can see, some of them are just rather mid-length in terms of that. Calypso Part 1, 2, and 3, around 6-7 minutes, and that's pretty much of it. And then there's this track lasting for almost 50. That one track alone is the reason for me to own this. Now, I'm not a big fan of Jarre's music in general. I mean, he's a very skilled, very talented musician in his own right, in his own genres. But when it comes to the music, it's too uplifting, too happy, and all just do kind of a thing. But this last track, it's no doubt one of the best dark ambient tracks of all time. Now, that track was kind of introduced me back in the, I think, very early 90s. Could have been actually late 80s, but I'm guessing very early 90s. I don't remember when I heard it for the first time. Now it must have been 90s, I guess, because at least this CD says something like 1990. Be it as it may, we were playing role-playing games, and we wanted to kind of a mood for the games, you know, in terms of soundscape and all. So we were looking for music, and back then, you know, music soundtracks were not that common, or at least we didn't know about proper soundtracks. Dark ambient was way too marginal for us teenagers back then, and in general, you didn't have kind of that much fitting music for our role-playing sessions. Now, someone, someplace had heard this album and this particular song I'm talking about, and we were blown away. Just because nothing really happens, and it's almost like this Cousteau, this famous diver and, you know, sea biologist, whatever his real title, profession is, I am not exactly sure. But I remember seeing those episodes when I was very, very little kid. I mean, something like 4 or 5 years old, something like that, probably even younger. And I remember it was fascinating to watch it with my father and mother, you know, like he would go into the sea, into the depths and, you know, find these fascinating fish and whatever. So when this music is kind of like, you know, it's taking me back in that sense, but obviously the music was happening years and years later. So anyway, this music kind of reflects those very deep waters in the sea where it's kind of a dark and kind of scary too. So it kind of makes this mental image in my head so much different ways than a lot of those other dark ambient acts which I got introduced late 90s, early 2000s and so forth. So be it as may, this particular album is very, very special for me, and at some point I needed to have it on CD. So it has been with me quite some time. And a very special track. So if you want to understand why this particular CD is still in my compilation and why I won't be rid of it, it's just this one track, Waiting for Cousteau. So there it is. Then there is a band which I've been talking about in its own respective worst to best ranking kind of video, which takes half the pile here. Maybe I should have even more, but this is pretty much taking care of it all. Judas Iscariot, my all-time favorite black metal band from United States. And these 5 CDs are the ones I have. I don't know why don't I have everything, because to be honest, everything by Judas Iscariot is really good. Some are very clumsy, like Cold Earth album, which I don't even have anymore, it seems. I was thinking it must be somewhere, but I don't know why. Have I upgraded something in vinyl? I don't remember, to be sure. I haven't been going through my vinyls for many, many years. So I have Distant in Solitary Nights, Heaven in Flames, Of Great Eternity, one of the best ones, Thy Dying Light, and, this To Embrace the Corpse's Bleeding CDs. I don't know where my Cold Earth Slap Below album, because it's good. So I don't know what happened. Is it lost? Sometimes I'm like, what the fuck happened to my CD collection? There might be still some misplacement. I mean, we moved here about 6 years ago, and then at some point there was renovation. People who have been following the channel might even remember that these wooden panels were very different color back in the days. They were not gray, but wooden colors. So at some point a few years ago, all these CD towers and whatnot were like taken away, CDs put into boxes. So it's not like these were set up towards the wall like 6 years ago. So, like I said, there could be some CD misplacements, which I will find later on. Either way, these Judas Iscariots are here for a reason. One of my favorite black metal bands from the roar side of things, and my favorite USBM band. And I don't need to introduce it no more, because there is this video about it. But it's a special band, and unfortunately it's no more for some personal reasons. That's a shame, really, because I really loved what they were doing, or more like Akhenaten was doing. So a special band for me, and that's why it dominates the letter J. Then there is this one peculiar case, because why you have only one Judas Priest album? Now, I'm a late bloomer when it comes to Judas Priest. I have heard it back in the days here and there, knowing single songs and all that stuff. I mean, I really love songs like Turbo Lover or Painkiller and stuff. The hit songs, to be honest. When a couple of years ago I went through the whole Judas Priest album discography, I was like, this kind of reminds me why I don't have them on CDs. Most of them don't do that much for me. Sure, some albums do more and I should probably have them, but then I kind of forgot about it and decided I will come back to Judas Priest later on when it's due time, and then I will figure out which ones I actually need for my collection. So why do I have this firepower then is, when it was released a few years ago, I got it for a review copy and I really liked it a lot. And that's actually sparked my interest towards checking out some older stuff, but as you pretty much figured out, you all know it already, I'm pretty much very busy with the review albums, so I don't really have the time or luxury to go through a lot of older releases, and that's why I'm lagging behind with bands like Judas Priest. But I know there are more albums I should own, but that's the short version of the story. And then one band which I also like, which I should be checking out more, but it is what it is, Jungle Rot. I think this is one of the most underrated death metal bands, and I do know my own Rauta paradox. Every band is underrated and overrated at the same time, so let's not get into that. Why is it this is underrated? It's like, it seems nobody talking about Jungle Rot because it's so simplistic and barbaric, but very groovy, catchy, and powerful death metal. And this is a band that I should actually dive more, deeper into, much like Judas Priest again. Because I know there are better albums, or maybe better albums, but more good albums than just his three. These are the ones I got over the years for review, and maybe one I bought even back in the days. And when I go actually for Jungle Rot, I always like, man, this is better than I remembered it to be. So it's one of those bands I'm like, I never kind of miss it. I'm never like, hey, I really feel like I should be listening to Jungle Rot. It's not like, Cannibal Corpse or Morbid Angel, Bullet Thrower Death, whatever. But when I listen to it, I kind of get into mood. I'm like, man, this is so much better than what it's given credit to. So I don't know why it's more like one of these forgotten good death metal acts, because it is indeed good stuff. So it's probably one of my future projects to go through all discographies by the very bands I own at least one album, because I know I'm missing out on some very important ones, but it's hard to start looking for when you don't know what exactly you're looking for. And at the moment, I'm too busy doing those retrospective videos about the bands I have interviewed. So maybe when that process is done, will take probably a few years. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe then I will go back to my record collection once again and figure out, okay, I have 3 albums by this band that maybe has like 8 or 10 albums, and then I will go through and get those before I die. So I was just pointing out that there's a reason why this collection is very small, and it's not like I'm aiming for bigger numbers. I actually want to have less albums, to be honest. I know it sounds weird. Maybe one day I will explain it further. But that it is why letter J is that short, and this video is way longer than just going through these albums. I wanted to emphasize the reasons, I wanted to explain why and all that stuff. So letter K is next, and you already see one of the albums on the background, letter K, Ketzer. So let's get into that once I'm done, maybe a couple of weeks. See you later. Bye.